So here you're going to see me do a second drop of color on the first run from the Gelli plate. I'm still going to use the same hair extensions that I've been using throughout the demonstration videos. First thing I'm going to do is I want to use the positive texture for the first print I'm going to do a double drop on. So what I'm doing here is I'm basically printing the first run onto a piece of proofing paper, and so I'm just going to put that to the side. And now what I'm really after is this positive texture. So I'm going to remove the hair, and then I'm going to print that positive texture onto this print here that has the first run on it. What's cool with the Gelli plates, you can see through it, so you can kind of like think about your composition with these more abstract texture prints. I'm eyeing my registration, so that basically means that I am using the plate mark from the previous print to help me line up the Gelli plate. The material is so sticky that it tends to hold really well when you turn it over like this, so I always prefer to print from the back. You're going to get a much more like even print that way. I'm using that little handmade baron that I made years ago that you see me use in a couple of the other videos. But also a spoon would work, or a baron, or even another brayer. So there's the double drop print right there. So I'm going to put that to the side. Now this is like classic demonstration moment here, which is like, hey, let's make this not work. There's always things in demos that don't work here. And, I want to show you this. Do you see, as I roll the ink on, it's actually lifting the ink off. I found that this happens with these Gelli plates when you're using the relief ink that's water-based like that. And it's kind of frustrating. This is actually fabric relief ink that I have. It was just in my studio before the shutdown, and so that's what I've got. And it tends to like get tacky pretty quickly. And on the Gelli plate, sometimes it has a tendency to like lift while it's being laid down. And so you actually just have to go back over with a thicker layer of ink, and what you're going to need to do is kind of roll it very purposefully. So you'll see me actually kind of like roll it instead of rolling back and forth. I kind of like apply it one direction and lift. I'm just honestly trying to avoid cleaning the plate a lot. I have a very limited amount of materials with me, and so I'm gonna just kind of like, instead of degreasing the plate, which is probably what's wrong, there's a grease problem on the plate, I'm just going to sort of like add a bit more ink and roll that out onto the plate. So kind of a backwards and forwards, like give and take is what I mean on that process, but um, if you can see here, you can see that I'm sort of somewhat struggling with getting that ink to lay down. So if you have that same problem, it's perfectly okay. Just see if you can't solve the solution by applying more ink. If not, then go ahead and clean the plate, degrease the plate, re-prep it. Once the plate is full, then it's ready to go ahead and start again with your texture. So I'm going to get some more hair and arrange that onto the plate, and go through the process again. So here you see me laying the hair down, thinking about how I want the hair to be laid across the plate for like compositional choices and reasons. You can be very thoughtful about what you're doing here. Again, try to avoid anything that's too hard because it can damage your plate. So what I'm going to do here is just show you. I've laid the hair down on the plate. That ink is pretty tacky. This is another technique here. I'm laying the hair and the plate down together in registration directly onto the paper with the first pull. Turn it over and pull my print. I wouldn't usually do that with like a relief block, but this ink is really tacky, and also we're just really moving here towards getting abstracted texture, so experimentation is as important as anything else. And so go ahead and experiment with process. See what happens when you try these different processes out. That's just a different way of pulling a second run on these prints. So that gave me the chance to put the negative negative space texture onto that print, and I still have the positive space texture on the plate right now, which I can print to another piece of paper. What you're seeing me do here is just blot that print and remove some of the excess ink, trying to let some of the first layer of color come through a little bit more, and also kind of blotting in that border to remove some of the extra ink that printed out there by accident. So now I have my final print that I pulled for the demonstration. It is important to keep your area clean, so keep a nice wet rag around so that you can clean up your area easily. Now I've got that nice positive texture on the plate still, and I'm going to go ahead and drop that onto that first run. Just eyeing the registration so that we can kind of use the plate's transparency to our advantage. And now I'm going to just pull that positive texture that was left on the plate right onto the print that I had before, creating my second drop. Remember, since we're using these water-based materials, it's easy cleanup. Just soap and water should clean up your block and your brayer and your inking area. And look for the parameters for the project in your assignment.